Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. First of all, if you're new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day on both fiction and non-fiction books, so if you're looking to follow book reviews on a wide variety of books, or if you just want to get some reading inspiration, then feel free to stick around. Today I am going to be reviewing another book in my Hugo Award reading challenge. So I've challenged myself to read all the finalists, shortlisted finalists, and winners of both the Hugo Award for Best Novel and Best Novella. And I'm just using the Wikipedia pages to check these off. So for 1969, I had to read the winner, which was Robert Silverberg's Nightwings. I had to read Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Rider, Samuel R. Delany's Lines of Power, and finally Dean McLaughlin's Among the Sparrows. So the winner was Robert Silverberg's Nightwings. So I'm reading the last one for this year, which is Among the Sparrows by Dean McLaughlin. This is what it looks like, and I found it in this collection, the Mammoth Book of New World Science Fiction Short Novels of the 1960s, but I'm sure this is not the only place that this novella exists. So I do find it a little difficult. I'm still working on perfecting how I'm reviewing these novellas because they're so short. I don't want to talk too much about the plot and give too much away, but I do need to give some essence of what's happened. In Hawk Among the Sparrows, we are following a member of the Air Force, of some Air Force, Howard Farman, who goes to investigate a new weapon. So this is post-World War II, and he's part of this new world that has come out of it, and France is going to be dropping a weapon. Howard Farman's military wants to keep an eye on things that are going on, so they have sent him to go investigate this weapon that's going to be dropped to try to get some readings. They've noticed there's some anomalies that come out of these weapons, so he goes close to investigate. Something goes wrong during the investigation. He descends from the clouds because there's some cloud cover that comes up, which was not supposed to come up, and he lands because he's out of fuel, and he finds that he is dropped into World War I France. So we've experienced time travel. Howard Farman is now presented with a number of problems. For example, number one, staying alive. Number two, trying to explain to people what's going on. And number three, trying to get his plane operational again. He thinks that maybe he can be of help with his more modern plane. He has more modern technology because he wants to take down this problematic fighter for the Germans, Bruno Kaiserling. And he thinks, well, I have a more advanced plane. If I can get this thing working again, because jet fuel, as he knows it, does not exist yet, then maybe he can use it to take out these German fighters, which have been so problematic to this French military group that he has landed with. So he is experiencing time travel, problems explaining how he got where he is, and also seeing if he can be of use and how to use this old technology that exists and is more modern to him technology, but to the French team futuristic technology of this more modern style fighter jet that's now sitting on their runway in their airfield. Overall, I have to say Dean McLaughlin is a really good writer. I connected really well with his writing style and I really enjoyed it. The short story was like 45 pages, I want to say, and it just flew by very quickly. I loved it. I would definitely read more by him. In fact, I would like to read more by him because I just found it so enjoyable. I feel like time travel has to be done I feel like it can be done poorly, let's just say that. I'm not very particular about time travel, and I don't get caught up in the paradoxes. I feel like I'm already reading a science fiction or a fantasy novel, then there's going to be some suspension of disbelief. So I'm not worried about getting every paradox ironed out or the technical details of how that happened ironed out. And in the space of a novella, the author doesn't really go into how it happened or why it happened or how these paradoxes can be resolved. But I think that he did have a clear enough time explaining some of the difficulties that would arise from going back in time. So I did think that he did a really good job handling it, and I liked the way that it was brought into the story. I think out of everything that I read for the year 1969, Nightwings, Dragon Rider, Lines of Power, and Hawk Among the Sparrows, I think Hawk Among the Sparrows was the best. I think this one, maybe it's just time, maybe it just held up better, but I really liked this one more than I liked any of the other ones. I think it was better than Nightwings for sure, which was the winner for that year. So out of my personal opinion from the year of 1969, I think Hawk Among the Sparrows was the best. There was one thing that I wanted to point out, something a little sad actually, because it aligned with something in my personal experience. It's on page 458 if you have this copy and are following along at home. Is it? 458? 438. Just kidding. 438. kidding. I can't find it fast enough. So basically, one of the French characters says that the reason they're fighting this war is so that they can prove to the other people that starting a war is no good idea, that if they start a war, they're going to lose very badly, they're going to lose a lot of their men, and they're going to die. And therefore, no one should start wars. So this French military has this idea, or the group that he's staying with, obviously, Howard Farman is not talking to all of the French military as a group, but the group that he's working with in this airfield, that they are under the impression that this is going to be, again, the war to end all wars. They're going to end wars. They're going to prove that starting a war is a bad idea. But any of us, and including the main character, knows that the Great War, World War I, is a World War I now. There was another one. It was not the war to end all wars. It was not going to stop future wars, and people were not going to learn to stop causing wars. If that was the case, they would have learned that a lot sooner than World War I would think. But it does remind me of something in my personal life. I was taking a road trip and I was in the town of Puxatawny. I hope I'm saying that correct, Pennsylvania. It has some significance in the United States, although I wouldn't say it's a very big town. But if I remember correctly, there was a Veterans Memorial Park that I was walking around in, and there was a memorial constructed by some women's group way back, 1920s, 30s, I want to say, and it was talking about people who had lost their lives fighting in different wars, and they had the 4 wars in their mind: the Revolutionary War, the Spanish-American War, I believe it was, the Civil War, and the Great War. The Great War. And the memorial is kind of memorializing this and hoping that no one else is going to die. And I feel like the irony is knowing from where I stood on that trip, modern day, knowing there was another war coming within 10, 20 years of these women putting this memorial up that would claim many, many more lives. And of course, there have been many wars since then. But I feel like the irony of seeing that memorial and realizing what's coming is kind of what Howard Farman experienced when this French military is talking about the hope that this is the war that's going to end all wars, and that's why they have to fight. But he knows that there's going to be other horrific, bloody wars that are going to come in years to come, and this is not going to play out the way that they want it to. Farman decides to keep his mouth shut in that moment. He feels like things will just play out the way they're going to play out, but he has that knowing, kind of the way that I had that knowing standing in that Veterans Memorial Park in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania. If you've read anything by Dean McLaughlin, including Hawk Among the Sparrows, please let me know. I'd love to receive your comments in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of